A cold December morning in 1872. A ship drifts alone in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Its sails are partially raised, the helm abandoned, and not a single person on board. This is one of the last known moments of the brigantine. Mary Celeste. She is now a ghost ship. But what happened to her? We rewind the story. Just 1 month earlier, everything seemed perfectly normal. We're at the port of New York. The date is November 5th, 1872. The merchant brig Mary Celeste is completing her final preparations before setting sail for Europe. At the helm stands Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, a 37-year-old seaman from Massachusetts, experienced, respected, and deeply religious. But this voyage is different for him. He's bringing his family along. His wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia, have settled into the captain's cabin. Little Sophia's tiny hands dance across the keys of the melodeon in the corner, filling the cabin with cheerful sounds as Sarah watches her with a warm, quiet smile. After a while, Mother began playing the melodeon. Sophie wanted her doll Sarah Jane to play along too. Yes, on this vast ship, there's a child serenading her toy. Captain Briggs trusts the sea enough to bring his wife and daughter aboard. That trust extends to his entire crew. Because a man who would never risk his own family surely wouldn't risk theirs. The crew of the Mary Celeste totals 10 people. Captain Briggs, his wife, and daughter, plus 7 seamen. First mate Albert Richardson, a seasoned sailor. Second mate Andrew Gilling, just 20. Young, eager, maybe a little green. The ship's cook and steward, Edward Head, is recently married. His thoughts, never far from the young wife he left behind. The 4 remaining crew members are German sailors. The Lorenzen brothers, Volkert and Boz, along with Arian Martins and Gottlieb Gautschall. They're a disciplined, well-matched team. But more importantly, Captain Briggs had chosen them carefully. Because this wasn't just any voyage. He was bringing his wife and child. He wouldn't allow a single man on board he didn't fully trust. And that kind of caution matters. Especially on a voyage across a storm-lashed ocean. On the morning of November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste sets sail from New York. On deck, the Briggs family waves farewell to loved ones at the dock. Little Sophia, cradling her rag doll, doesn't fully grasp the journey ahead. But her excitement is unmistakable. In the ship's hold, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, a valuable cargo, bound for winemakers in Italy. As the vessel slowly pulls away from port, Captain Briggs pens one final letter. In it, he writes, "Since Sarah and Sophie joined me, this ship feels like home. We sing together in our small cabin, with the melodeon playing softly in the background. The young captain's heart is full of hope. He plans to reach Europe, complete the delivery, and return home by spring. No one aboard knows yet. This voyage is fated to become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in maritime history. The first days on the vast Atlantic are calm. The Mary Celeste sails steadily, her white sails full of wind, cutting through the endless blue horizon. Life on board unfolds as expected. In the heart of the ocean, distance swallows time. At night, soft music drifts from the captain's cabin. Briggs and his family sing hymns to the gentle sound of the melodeon. The crew enjoys the fair weather, swapping stories of home while gazing at the open sea. No one imagines that within a few weeks, all 10 souls on this deck will vanish without a trace. But as the ship nears the tropics, the Atlantic begins to change its mood. By mid-November, an unexpected storm engulfs the Mary Celeste. The wind shifts suddenly and gains speed. Waves rise and crash with fury. Dark clouds smother the daylight, plunging the ship into an early, violent night. A storm strikes with full force. The Mary Celeste lurches violently from starboard to port. Captain Briggs shouts commands over the howling wind. Sails are reefed in, ropes secured tightly to their cleats. Wave after wave crashes over the bulwarks. The deck floods, again and again. The storm is so fierce that for 2 whole weeks the ship struggles, just to stay on course. The crew, sleepless, exhausted, work in shifts to keep her steady as they inch toward the Azores. They survive this brutal test of nature. But both ship and men are battered. One mast suffers light damage. Some sails are torn. Still, the vessel hasn't taken on serious water. They believe the worst is over. By the end of November, the skies finally clear. The Atlantic wears a gentler face, as if the storm had never happened. Silence blankets the waves. The crew begins repairing what they can, tending to bruises and torn canvas. A few whisper thanks to the heavens. We made it through. Even little Sophia finally returns to the deck, peering around curiously from her mother's arms. Everything seems back on track. Or is it? But in truth, the real danger may only now be beginning. With the storm behind them, strange problems begin to emerge. Second mate Andrew Gilling notices the bilge pump isn't drawing water. There's some flooding in the lower hold, but how much? They can't tell. The pump is malfunctioning. Captain Briggs begins to feel the weight of uncertainty. He no longer has a clear sense of whether the ship is taking on dangerous amounts of water. And another worry gnaws at him. Land. Should have appeared by now. Strange. Still no land, he mutters one night. He starts to suspect his chronometer is faulty. Or maybe he's made an error in his charts. Then there's the smell. A strange, sharp odor drifts up from below deck. With the cargo hold's vents sealed, could fumes from the 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol be building up? Or maybe it's just lingering coal dust from a previous shipment. Heated by the sun? No one knows for sure. The crew's nerves begin to fray. Everyone is desperate to reach the safety of a port. But the horizon remains stubbornly empty. The final entry in the Mary Celeste's logbook is dated midnight, November 24th, 1872. Captain Briggs makes one last set of calculations. We should have seen land by now, he thinks, setting down his spyglass. He hopes they're nearing Santa Maria Island. Everyone on board is longing for this grueling journey to end. His wife Sarah has tucked little Sophie into bed and now lies silently, whispering prayers in the dark. Some crewmen, breaking from routine, begin to pack a few personal belongings. Perhaps an unease is creeping in. Outside, the Atlantic lies flat and still, calm as a sheet. But inside the Mary Celeste, there's a tension in the air. A silence that feels too heavy. Like the moment before a storm. At dawn on November 25th, The moment they've been waiting for finally arrives. Land. In sight. Santa Maria Island, just east of the Azores, appears on the horizon. The sun breaks through the clouds as Mary Celeste closes in on her destination. Captain Briggs scans the shore through his telescope, hoping the crew will begin to relax. But there's no room for relief on board, because something else is happening. A sailor rushes up from the lower deck, shouting. Water is pooling in the hold. The pumps are checked. One is out of order. The other can't keep up. In just a few hours, a dangerous amount of seawater might be gathering below. Briggs tries to quiet the rising panic. It can't be enough to sink her. Surely. But what if he's wrong? What if the ship is slowly flooding from within? And in a matter of hours, will capsize? He can't know for sure. We're so close to land, he thinks. But what if we go under before we reach it? The thought is terrifying. At that very moment, second mate Gilling rushes in. Sir, we saw something. Smoke or vapor coming from the hold. Could the barrels of alcohol be leaking? Building up explosive fumes? One sailor claims as he approached the hatch with a lantern, he heard a soft pop. A sudden flare that vanished before it could burn. There's no visible fire. But the seed of fear has been planted. And fear spreads fast at sea. Under these conditions, only one thought begins to take shape in Captain Briggs's mind. Abandoned ship. No captain makes that decision lightly. No one simply leaves a vessel adrift in the middle of the ocean. But for Briggs, the safety of his family and his crew outweighs everything else. Mary Celeste still looks sound. She might not sink, but what if she does? What if there's an explosion? The shore isn't far. Maybe, just maybe, they can reach the island by lifeboat. Preparations begin on deck. Fast. The small lifeboat is lowered by the davits, tied with a thick tow line to Mary Celeste. The plan. Everyone boards the lifeboat, keeps the main ship tethered behind them, and returns once the danger passes. At the last moment, Briggs returns to his cabin. He grabs the essentials, his logbook, his chronometer. Then he stops. On the desk, family photographs and a Bible. He wants to take them. But there's no time. He glances toward the melodeon hanging on the wall, and perhaps feels in that moment that he may never hear its music again. But this is no time for sentiment. This is a fight for survival. Everyone takes their place in the lifeboat. Captain Briggs turns to his wife and daughter. Hold on tight. Little Sophia is crying, her small face scrunched with fear. Sarah clutches her to her chest, whispering a prayer only the two of them can hear. Second mate Gilling, still so young, checks the bailer, the compass. His eyes flick across the horizon, nervous, watchful. Back on the Mary Celeste, no one remains. The cabin doors swing open. Personal belongings lie exactly where they were left. The proud ship, now a husk, silent, abandoned. The lifeboat trails about 120 meters behind, tied to her by a single thick rope. 10 souls huddle close in a fragile arc of wood, watching as their home, their ship, glides on toward land. The plan is simple. Wait out the danger, then haul themselves back aboard. The first few minutes pass in eerie calm. A strange silence hangs over the sea. Too still. And in that stillness, fate makes its move. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a sharp gust of wind fills Mary Celeste's sails. The large square sail on her port side catches the wind with a snap, and the brig lurches forward, picking up speed. The thick rope towing the lifeboat grows taut, rising from the water, and with a thunderous crack, it snaps. The small lifeboat jolts, left adrift like a leaf torn from a branch, bobbing helplessly in the waves. Briggs shouts, "The line's broken! Row, now!" The crew frantically grabs their oars, pulling with all their strength. But it's too late. Mary Celeste has the wind at her back and begins to glide away, smooth and steady, as if guided by some invisible hand. Her bow slices through the water, indifferent, silent. The people in the lifeboat watch in helpless disbelief. Just moments ago they stood on her deck. Now they're watching her disappear over the horizon, drifting, fading, gone. 10 people, alone in a tiny boat, stranded in the vast open ocean. No land in sight, no ships on the horizon, and the Mary Celeste, empty, ghostly, sails on toward her fate. Mary Celeste had been left to fate, completely without a crew. No one at the helm. Yet the ship stayed afloat. Wind and current carried her from the waters of the Azores into the open Atlantic. She drifted like that for days. On December 5th, the Canadian brig Dei Gratia spotted a strange vessel on the horizon. When Captain David Morehouse realized it was the Mary Celeste, he was stunned. The ship had left New York days before his own. She should have been long arrived. A small boarding party from Dei Gratia climbed aboard. What they found would become legend. There wasn't a single soul aboard. The food stores were full. 6 months of untouched provisions. The crew's personal trunks intact. Even the captain's locked chest of documents, still sealed. In the captain's cabin, women's clothing and tiny child's shoes hung neatly in the wardrobe. Clear traces of the Briggs family. On the bed lay little Sophia's doll. The sheets were rumpled, as if a child had recently slept there. The silence on board was bone-chilling. Captain Morehouse ordered the ship examined. 3.5 feet of water in the bilge. Noticeable, but not life-threatening. The vessel was still seaworthy. So, why had everyone abandoned her? The ship's only lifeboat was missing from the stern, meaning they had left willingly. But why? That question would remain unanswered. The crew of the Dei Gratia refuses to leave the Mary Celeste adrift. With a skeleton team, they tow her from the Azores all the way to Gibraltar. Meanwhile, word spreads across the Atlantic. Newspapers in England and America erupt with headlines. Ghost ship discovered. Around the world, people begin to whisper about the mystery, speculating, theorizing, obsessing over what could have happened. The legend of the Mary Celeste is born. The case becomes the subject of an official inquiry in Gibraltar. The British Admiralty Court, tasked with deciding whether to reward the Dei Gratia crew, first tries to uncover what really happened. Attorney General Frederick Solly Flood is suspicious from the start. "Something isn't right here," he declares, and begins scouring the Mary Celeste for signs of foul play. He claims to find what appears to be a sword slash on the deck, along with dark, dried stains. Possibly blood. Solly Flood's first theory? Mutiny. Maybe the crew tried to drink the industrial alcohol, got drunk, turned violent, murdered the Briggs family, and escaped in the lifeboat. But the evidence refuses to cooperate. None of the 1,701 barrels had been opened. Not one. And with Briggs's unshakable reputation and his family on board, there's no reason he'd hire a crew of drunks and misfits. Forensic tests seal the theory's fate. The mysterious stains aren't blood at all. Solly Flood then turns his suspicion toward the crew of the Dei Grecia. What if they boarded the Mary Celeste, killed everyone, and staged a rescue to claim the reward? He wonders. After all, the ship and its cargo are valued at $46,000, a hefty sum for a salvage payout. But once again, the facts don't align. No signs of struggle, no blood, no broken locks, nothing stolen. Mary Celeste remains eerily undisturbed, and crucially, the two ships had departed New York at different times and crossed paths by sheer coincidence in the open ocean, making any conspiracy highly unlikely. In the end, the court rules the fate of the crew unknown and grants a salvage award. But it's unusually small, just 1,700 pounds. Even without proof, the authorities seem to suspect something wasn't quite right. Their caution speaks volumes. When the official investigation fails to yield answers, the tale of the Mary Celeste begins to take on a life of its own. Newspapers embellish the story with invented details. One article claims that cups of tea were still warm on the table, and half-eaten breakfasts lay untouched. Pure fiction. Another insists there were 2 lifeboats on board, both still secured, as if the crew had vanished into thin air. In 1884, Arthur Conan Doyle adds fuel to the fire with a fictional short story titled J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement. He changes the ship's name to Mary Celeste, a mistake that becomes more famous than the truth. From there, the myths multiply. People suggest everything from giant squids to Bermuda Triangle-like forces. Dozens of outlandish theories circulate. But what really happened? That question slips beneath the surface, lost in the same deep silence that swallowed the ship's crew. Mary Celeste would never again carry a living crew. After the inquiry in Gibraltar, she was returned to her American owners and sent back to sea. But the stain on her name never washed away. Between 1873 and 1885, 3 different captains took command, and each, in turn, abandoned her. Finally, Captain Gilman Parker tried to end it once and for all. In a desperate bid for insurance money, he deliberately ran the Mary Celeste aground on a coral reef. But the scheme failed. Parker was caught and convicted of fraud, and the ship was left broken and rotting in the shallows. The Mary Celeste disappeared from the ocean's surface, but never from memory. Her story lived on, drifting through the minds of sailors and mystery lovers alike. This ghost ship inspired countless books, films, and songs. And to this day, she remains one of the greatest unsolved enigmas in maritime history. So what really happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste? Maybe Briggs and his men were caught in a sudden storm aboard the lifeboat, swallowed by the waves. Maybe another ship tried to rescue them, but failed to report it. Or perhaps they never made it to the Azores at all, dying slowly of thirst beneath a merciless sun. We'll never know. What we do know is this: abandoning their ship in the middle of the ocean did not save them. On the contrary, it sealed their fate in tragedy and mystery. Little Sophia Briggs, just 2 years old, an innocent child with no grave. Her name survives only as a whisper in the wind. Sarah and Captain Briggs set out on a voyage full of dreams, but no one knows where it ended. If the sea became their grave, their bodies were never found. Perhaps they drifted away, into eternity, cradled in the arms of a wave. The silent legacy of the Mary Celeste is this: The sea does not surrender its secrets easily, and the mystery of the Mary Celeste will remain, forever echoing across the Atlantic horizon, a whisper lost in time.